Hi, Elle here at pressure-free.com. Just wanted to give you a little look at these turtles. It's a cooler day, but the sun is out, so all these turtles have come up on the log. And when you're first going by, it just looks like little bumps on the log, but then you look closer and you're like, oh, those are turtles. So we have seen a lot of turtles out here in this little swamp, and I'll turn my screen around here because I have a topic at which I dwell on this probably every day. What does it mean to be mentally well? How do you define being mentally well? That to me is a really deep question. It's one I think about a lot. And if you have thoughts about that, I would love for you to share them with me. You can put them in the comments or send me a private message. But what does it mean to be mentally well? My definition of that has definitely changed over the past 10 years. The deeper that I have explored the pressure-free method, used the pressure-free method, and watched my own mental health change. So I think it's a really powerful question. And lately I've been a little captivated by Professor Ellis, who had taught at Columbia, where my son is, and kind of delving into his things. Because I resonate with what he talks about. And one of the things that I'm questioning today is, how are we disturbing ourselves? Like, what kind of disturbances do we create to ourselves that cause us to be mentally not well? And I think with the advent of social media, there's been an explosion of that. There's been an explosion of disturbing our own selves. Much more so than when I was a small girl, when I was growing up, even 20s, 30s, 40s, it wasn't until the 50s that social media came along. So it's fascinating to me how, or I guess 40s, late 40s, how many more disturbances can occur because of social media. So what does it mean to be mentally well? I'm going to go this way today. When I ponder that question, one of the things that comes up for me is, of course, our self-talk. Like, how are we talking to ourselves? What words do you use? I was working with a coach, Robert Allen, a few years back, 2012 it was. And for 3 weeks, I listened to how my voice talked to me in my head. Like, really pondered it and listened to it. So luckily, he said to me, we have a lot of voices in there, so don't worry if you hear different voices. So here were some of mine. I had what I call my cheerleader voice. It's very happy, it's very friendly, keeping me going, having a good day. I am a generally very optimistic person, so I wake up very happy. So it just kind of keeps me on my day. Then I had this voice that I call command form you. So the first thing I started to notice in my voice is, am I using the pronoun I or the pronoun you? And command form you sounds like this. Don't forget, you better hurry up and get that project done. Don't forget, you better go pick up your son. Don't forget, it's laundry day. And I noticed that when the don't forget or the command form you voice would come into my head, my shoulders would tense. I used to hold a lot of tension in my shoulders. Do you have tension in your shoulders? Like right back in through here? I would hold a lot of tension in there. And so this idea of, by the way, I'm going to plug this so that you don't get weird sounds. The idea that the voices in our head can cause us to trigger fight or flight. If my shoulders get tense and tight, it's like priming me to go what I call under the line, to actually trigger the stress hormones and be non-pressure free. So I listened for that voice. I started listening for that voice, command form you voice. There's another voice, even more, I would say, insidious and extremely, what's the word? It's a self-sabotaging voice, I guess you could say, but it actually stems from a good thing. It's because growing up as a musician and as a professional musician, hours and hours alone in a practice room, You are your own critic for a lot of the times. And then you go in for a lesson where you get the big criticism, or a master class where everybody's criticizing you. But you do a lot of self-critical analysis of your performing and your playing. And so, in fact, a lot of I would say probably everyone that I coach will say, yeah, I self-sabotage with my own thoughts. So that's what I'm getting at with this idea today. Like, how are you disturbing yourself? Again, the voice would say you. It would use you, not I, but you. So it would be like, oh, you better play that passage better. You're going to ruin the performance. You. So when I analyzed the voices back in 2012, I really started to say to myself, okay, from this point forward, I don't need somebody yelling at me. I was 47 years old or so. I'm like, I don't need anybody yelling at me anymore. So I started to, when I would hear the you voice come in, at first, my coach had me put a dial on my head, like turn down the volume, okay? So I was doing a little bit of that turn down the volume thing. But then I created the idea of flip the switch. Flip the switch is imagining you have a light switch on the side of your head. And you need to keep the lights on. Because when the negative voice starts to chatter in your head, chances are you're triggering fight or flight, and the first thing that happens is you shut off dopamine in your head. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain that allows you to think and remember, make good decisions, and have willpower. Those three things go away, and that's why you'll binge eat, you'll stress eat. That's why you'll say things and do things you later regret. You're not peaceful. So if you can take a moment and hear that critical voice is going in your mind, and pretend you have this light switch, do a physical motion. One of the only ways that a human adult brain can actually start to rewire and create a new neural pathway is a large motion. That's why when kids are little, they should be playing really big. That's how their brain develops. Your brain develops through large motion. It's incredible what happens. And so flip the switch is a motion first. I smile. Smile also keeps a little bit of dopamine flowing. So I've done two things to help keep dopamine flowing and help rewire my brain out of a habit. Because most of the talk that we have when you're disturbing yourself, it's a habit. We have these habits of disturbing ourselves. And to me, it's just insidious. It's so unnecessary. And yet maybe it's not even your own voice in your head. Maybe it's your parents' voice. Maybe it's an aunt or an uncle. Maybe it's your grandparents or a sibling or a peer who you really respected, or a teacher or a coach. And you keep hearing that voice. So flip the switch, smile, and now to really break the pattern, because what we're doing here in Pressure Free is breaking habits of reaction that could be generations old. You need to take a moment. I'm going to sit on this bench here. I'm moving kind of fast. You need to take a moment and ask an empowering question. I say this a lot to my clients because most of the time we're asking ourselves the wrong questions. We're disturbing our own minds. We're disturbing ourselves. And that causes disturbance with everyone around us. And it causes disturbances in the greater world. So it's like, what questions are you asking yourself? Are you saying, why am I so stupid? Why can't I get this? You're going to get all the reasons why. When I teach violin, I'm always like, okay, how can I help them play this beautifully? Because what do they say? Why am I so stupid I couldn't play that well? It's like, flip the switch on that and ask an empowering question that moves you towards solution. If it's a relationship situation, it's like, what can you say? What can you do? Maybe you're not saying anything, but what can you do to improve a relationship? How can I improve this relationship? How can I stop self-sabotaging? So ask yourself a question that moves you towards solution. So that's what I call an empowering question. You're not asking a question that mires you deeper in the muck. So look at the directionality of the question that you're asking yourself. Look at the directionality of the words that are going on in your head. Are they moving you in a positive, or it can be neutral, but it's a direction that is not pulling you down and self-sabotaging your efforts, self-sabotaging your relationship, the things that you want to have happen in your life. So I'm curious to know, what does it mean to be mentally healthy for you? And again, if you don't want to put it publicly here in a comment, I got some great things yesterday. Thank you for the people who gave me some insights. You can private message me. Like, what is mental health to you? Here's one of the defining things. If you need to turn to a substance to feel well, then there's an issue. So if you're reaching for a glass of wine every night, if you are reaching for marijuana every night, if you're reaching for a little thing of CBD oil every night, that's a sign that something isn't quite right. Something's not harmonious within you. You're looking for something to make you feel good. Maybe it's an addiction to a person too. Maybe it's to a comedian online. So that to me can just kind of give you a little base, and you can start to think about that. So I'm wishing you a great pressure-free day, and I will see you soon. Bye.